They say America put a man on the moon. But ask someone where the moon actually goes during the day and watch the panic set in. This isn't about stupidity. It's about a country that memorized answers and never learned how to think. I was giving a tour in Athens when an American tourist raised his hand mid-sentence. He pointed at the Parthenon and said, "Wow, it's crazy how you guys rebuild it to look so old." He genuinely believed ancient ruins were movie props, part of a Greek history experience. When I explained it was actually ancient, he frowned. Then why didn't they just make a new one? The old one's broken. He said it like history was a bad renovation project. That's when I realized he didn't hate history. He just thought it was optional. My cousin once argued that the alphabet was copyrighted. He claimed the reason schools could print ABC charts was because they paid royalties to the English language. I asked him who collects those royalties. He said the Queen, probably. He was dead serious. He believed there was a global subscription service for letters like $19, $9.99 MON to keep speaking. At my university, a student once asked if Africa was a country or a brand. She said, "You know, like Nike or Disney, it's everywhere." When someone tried to explain it's a continent, she replied, "No way. My phone says made in Africa, so it must be one place." She wasn't joking. She thought geography worked like trademarks. American education doesn't fail because it doesn't teach facts. It fails because it replaces curiosity with certainty. The system builds confidence before competence and then exports that confidence globally. That's why so many Americans don't sound unsure abroad. They sound loudly wrong. I worked at a planetarium when a man interrupted my presentation to ask, "So when do you guys clean the stars?" I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He said, "I mean, if they're lights, someone must change the bulbs sometimes." He was angry when I explained, "Stars are massive balls of burning gas." He muttered, "That's just your opinion." The man didn't need science. He needed customer service for the cosmos. My roommate believed that wind turbines steal air from nearby towns. He said that's why it's so windy here. The windmills are sucking up all the breeze before it gets to the city. He thought airflow was a zero-sum game. He even proposed turning them off on weekends to let nature breathe. I once worked at a zoo where a mother asked me, "Are the zebras painted every day?" I laughed. She didn't. She said, "No. Seriously, they have to repaint them before opening, right?" I told her the stripes were natural. She frowned and said, "That's impossible. You can't just grow perfect lines." She left convinced we were hiding a paint department behind the giraffe exhibit. When critical thinking dies, belief fills the space. And in America, belief is sacred. People don't say, "I think," they say, "I believe." Belief doesn't need evidence. It just needs confidence in a Facebook account. A coworker once refused to drink water from the tap because it's full of hydrogen. He said, "Hydrogen is explosive. I'm not drinking that." I tried to explain H2O, but he interrupted. "Yeah, nice try." I passed high school chemistry. He started buying bottled water labeled oxygen-infused, which ironically contained even more of what he was afraid of. A guy on my flight to London asked the flight attendant, "What language do they speak in the UK?" She said, "English." He paused, confused. "Then why do they have accents?" He was dead serious. He believed accents were optional voice filters people turned on for tourists. My aunt once told me she avoids sunscreen because it blocks vitamin D. I said, "That's the point. It blocks harmful UV." She replied, "No. I saw on TikTok that the sun's good for you and cancer is just fear energy." She said it so calmly, I almost believed her. She was treating science like a salad bar. Pick what feels nice and ignore the rest. Somewhere along the way, education stopped being a process and became a vibe. People now treat science like astrology. Choose your favorite version and post about it. In the USS, misinformation isn't the disease, it's the curriculum. While tutoring high schoolers, I asked one girl to define a metaphor. She said, "It's like when you say something, but it's not true, and you don't get sued." Technically not wrong, but terrifyingly close to the national philosophy. A man came into the hardware store where I worked and asked for a can of cold. He said his house wasn't cooling, so he needed to refill the cold air. When I explained that air conditioners recycle refrigerant, not spray it, he said, "Then why is it called air conditioning?" He thought HVAC was a kind of aerosol. He left with a fan and a grudge against physics. During a trivia night, the question was, what's the chemical symbol for water? One guy slammed the buzzer and shouted, W. The host tried to correct him, but he argued, "No, W makes sense, it's literally water." He was angry when told it's H2O, muttering, "See, that's what happens when you overcomplicate things." He lost the round, but gained a TED Talk in anti-intellectualism. America worships simplicity. Keep it simple became keep it stupid. The education system sells answers, not questions. And when questions appear, people feel attacked. In this culture, complexity isn't intelligence. It's elitism. A girl once argued that bees are vegan because they make honey, not meat. When someone told her honey isn't vegan, she said, "Well then, bees are unethical." She wasn't joking. She wanted to cancel bees. It was the first time I saw moral outrage applied to insects. My neighbor tried to charge his iPhone in the microwave. He said he saw it in a life hack video. 10 seconds on low heat for a quick charge. He genuinely believed the radiation would power the battery like wireless charging, but faster. He melted the phone, then argued with Apple customer service that they should have warned him microwaves aren't safe. I had a coworker whoothed World War II was just a sequel. He said, "So World War I was the first half and World War II was like the comeback." He believed it was the same war with an intermission. He even asked, "So who won Part 1? I said, "No one." He said, "Figures classic cliffhanger." America trained generations to consume, not comprehend. When history feels boring, we turn it into content. Now people don't just misunderstand the world, they remix it. Because why study reality when you can scroll it? I once overheard a couple at the Grand Canyon. The husband said, "Wow, the government did an amazing job building this." The wife nodded. It must have taken forever to dig. They believed the Grand Canyon was a construction project, like a theme park. When the rangers said it was natural erosion, the man whispered, "He's covering up the budget." My friend's brother refused to eat watermelon because the seeds can grow inside you. He was 32. He said that's why they sell seedless now. People kept dying. He was genuinely afraid of internal agriculture. He even called it fruit pregnancy. At a museum in Rome, a tourist asked why the statues were all naked. The guide said it was a celebration of the human form. The tourist frowned and whispered to his wife, "So they just didn't have shame back then." She replied, "Maybe that's why Rome fell." Their logic was bulletproof in the wrong direction. American education confuses morality with intelligence. If something feels weird, it must be wrong. If it's unfamiliar, it must be immoral. So when Americans face the ancient, the foreign, or the complex, they don't ask why. They ask, "How dare you?" A man at a restaurant once sent his steak back because it was bleeding. He demanded a refund, saying, "I asked for medium rare, not medium alive." When the waiter explained that it wasn't blood, but a protein called myoglobin, he said, "Don't gaslight me. I know what blood looks like." He looked around expecting applause for knowing science. Instead, he became the first person in history to argue with biology over dinner. My friend's mom once said she doesn't trust Wi-Fi because it comes from space. When asked what she meant, she said, "It's invisible." That's suspicious. She believed the government sends wire sockets through routers. She had unplugged hers and was proud that her house was now offline from the grid. She thought she'd escaped while calling her son on a smartphone. I worked in customer service for an airline when a passenger demanded a refund because the clouds were in the way. He said he couldn't see the ground during his flight, so the view was defective. He even asked, "Can I get a window seat refund for visual obstruction?" It was the first time I heard someone apply Yelp logic to the atmosphere. American education doesn't just create ignorance, it creates customers. When you grow up in a system where everything is sold, even truth starts to feel like a product. And when knowledge isn't entertaining, people ask for a refund. A man on a beach in Hawaii told me sunscreen was a government mind-control gel. He said, "They make you rub it in so it absorbs faster." I asked how he protects himself from UV rays. He smiled and said, "Coconut oil and patriotism." That day, he looked like a burnt flag by sunset. My neighbor thought Mount Rushmore was a natural rock formation, that the president's faces appeared there over time due to erosion. When I told him it was carved, he said, "No way. That's divine branding." He believed America's founding fathers were chosen by geology. At a college debate, one student argued that the Civil War was a misunderstanding. He said it wasn't about slavery. It was about bad communication. He compared it to a family argument that got out of hand. When someone mentioned there were cannons, he replied, "Exactly. Overreaction in America." History isn't what happened. It's what feels comfortable to remember. Facts are negotiable. Chronology is optional. It's not that people were never taught the truth. It's that the truth didn't pass the vibe check. A man at a public hearing on solar power stood up and said, "We need to stop using solar panels before we drain the sun." He thought the sun was a finite battery and that we were sucking it dry to charge our Teslas. The room went silent, not because no one disagreed, but because half the audience looked like they were thinking, "Wait, can that happen?" The American education system didn't fail overnight. It failed quietly, not by removing facts, but by replacing understanding with confidence. It built generations who can Google everything and learn nothing. Because when a system teaches answers instead of curiosity, ignorance stops being a flaw. It becomes a personality. This isn't about dumb people. It's about a smart nation that mistook convenience for intelligence. A country that can launch rockets to Mars but still argues about gravity on Facebook. Proof. You just watched it.